Okay, I've decided to create my own JavaScript minifier. I just needed it for some web development I was doing recently. I don't do a lot of web development, but I wanted to create my own website all from scratch. So I've sort of done everything, and I know there's other minifiers out there, but it seems, to be honest, just as much trouble trying to find out how somebody else's program works rather than write your own. So that's what I've done. It serves my needs adequately. I've got it to work. It's probably crap. It's probably not as good as others, but I don't care. Right. So how does it work? Okay. Well, it's called JSquash. And the way it works is it, of course, takes your JavaScript file as input and then identifies symbols in there with the ultimate goal of replacing those symbols with shorthand, sort of random symbols, partly to compact it and partly to obfuscate it. And you also have comments removed and white space removed, right? Okay, so my program offers various options, and those options have helped me actually to kind of debug my JavaScript quite well, so I'm pleased with that. And when we say looking for symbols in JavaScript, we're talking about variable names, basically. That's what it's trying to pick out, your own variable names, which may consist of letters, numbers, an underscore, or a dollar. I think that's about it. And that's all I'm troubling myself with. So, right, here's my JavaScript file, right? A bit of JavaScript, that's all it is, okay? And I've got this open in Visual Studio Code. Now the good thing about Visual Studio Code is it's handy for things like JavaScript. I don't find Visual Studio Code to be wonderful in all cases. I mean, what's the deal with not being able to print from it? If you want to print something, you have to select your code and go out and copy it somewhere else. I think there's a plugin to do printing. Why would you need a plugin to do printing? Flipping heck. I mean, surely it should be able to, you'd be able to do Control P and it gives you the option to print stuff. But no. I suppose people think, oh, it uses up paper. We don't print stuff out anymore. Well, yeah, right. Okay. So here's my JavaScript. It's a kind of an iterative process. You run the program and you specify your JavaScript files for input, which I haven't shown on this diagram. But what it does is it outputs the symbols it identifies to JS symbols, and it prefixes it with the name of the input file, so it makes this file unique. So it stores all the symbols it finds in here, and if this file here, this JavaScript reserved file, is supposed to be all reserved words, for, while, stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, there's not that many in JavaScript, is there? Function, var, words like that. But also anything else that really, HTML DOM functions and stuff like that, right? So, so if you don't have any of these to start with, it doesn't matter, because the program will generate a very basic list of reserved words, and it will put all the symbols in here, right? Now when I say this is an iterative process, what happens is it generates all the symbols to start with, and then you look through your symbols file and you identify stuff which are other reserved words, or words that you might, you want to keep the same. You don't want them changing. So you know, there might be items of code or names in your JavaScript that you want to keep the same. So what you do is, having identified those, anything that's like a system reserved word, what you do is you put it in, inside this list, you prefix it with an asterisk. Anything you want to ignore so it doesn't get substituted in the output, you put with a plus. And then when you run JSquash again, it finds those out and moves those symbols to the ignore file or the reserved file. And then, you know, depending on the resulting JavaScript, if it works, you know, fine. If it doesn't and you've got a bug, it's you know, quite likely to be it's substituting things that it shouldn't be doing. So you have to inspect the code, find out what other symbols must not be altered, must not be substituted, and once again, having identified them, prefix with a plus or a asterisk and run it again. Okay, so let's try this out. I've got here's my JavaScript, and there's the program, and that's it basically. Right, so if I say JavaScript, right, wants an input file, it wants an output file, so we'll call it kzx.js. Right, now if I don't specify any options, it just duplicates the file. Right, so now we've got this kzx, right, and they are identical. So, I mean, you know, you might use this if you are in the habit of processing your JavaScript before uploading it to a server, in which case you would use these settings just to make sure that you're getting raw JavaScript unfettered by the complications of minifying and obfuscating. Okay, right, so now what's that also done, it's generated a symbols file. Right, so this is all the symbols it's found in this piece of JavaScript. Okay, so 146 symbols. Okay, now the value in brackets here is what it will replace this value with when you do the substitution. Right, so it's you know, it's kind of just generated a random value on encountering these symbols, and that's what it replaces with. So we can show that if we go to here, and now I say substitute -s. Right, so there you go. It's changed the JavaScript here, and you can see that it's changed the function name. It's changed everything, right? So for instance, kz here, it's changed with AU. Okay, now we didn't have a reserved word list to start with, but it's generated a default one. Right, so actually what we'll do is we'll just put this over here. Right, so this is generated by the program. Okay, and what it's done is, I just picked out a few terms which I know you don't really want to change. Okay, but it's also put in the basic list of characters like the dollar, the underscore, and all the letters and numbers, because you're not going to want to attempt to obfuscate single letter variables or single letter function names if you've got anything like that. So it automatically decides that dollar A to Z, 0 to 9. Oh no, we haven't got numbers in there. We haven't got numbers in there because numbers can't be variables by themselves, right? So lowercase letters, they're all considered reserved. Okay, I mean, I don't know, you know, other people think you're probably raising your eyebrows at this. Well, you know, I don't know, it works for me. Okay, and finally my ignore file has got nothing in it, right? So as yet I haven't determined anything I don't want to change. So the reserved file is like system stuff really, and the ignore stuff is your own stuff that you just don't want it changed. Okay, so right, so over here, you know, this would be a problem, right? I mean, if you've got your little sort of namespace here and it's used in different places, you probably don't want to change this stuff, right? So what you would do is, for instance, having identified KZ as something you don't want to change, what you do is you go to your symbols and you stick in a plus, right? For that matter, we'll do the app as well. We don't want that changing. We don't want lib changing. Okay. Right. Is there anything that I don't want changing in? Is there any system words I don't want changing? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, let's just take the word document, stick it over here in my, no, I'll tell you what, we'll just take this out completely, right? We'll take this out completely. And in fact, I'll take that out for a minute. I'll leave it as it is, and we'll just run it again, having taken out the document reserved word. Let's run it again, see what it does. Right. What's it done? Oh, interesting. Oh, it's because that's a fixed word. It goes back in there anyway because the program knows about it. So some words it automatically knows it should be in there. Yeah, okay, fine. All right, let's go. Let's do this again. Then what we'll do, we'll go back to what we were doing before. We'll say we want to keep app, and we want to keep KZ, and we want to keep lib. Okay, so if I run the program now, it identifies those, it removes it from the symbol file, and it sticks them in my ignore file. Now the substitution has not occurred for those items, right? So they've stayed the same. Okay, so you know, this list might become quite long, right? Now let's just pretend, for instance, I can't see any other system, you know, variables in here, but let's just pretend. Okay, we'll just take, say, we'll just take this alert, right? Now if I decide that this is definitely a reserved word, let's say it was a JavaScript reserved word or an HTML DOM function or something like that, I'd mark it with an asterisk, right? And then when I run it again, this time it puts alert in the reserved thing. Okay, right? Well, that's wrong because it's not a system word, but you might, for instance, want to So if I get rid of that now, let's just run it again. Sticks alert back in there, right? So you get the idea. You get the idea of what's going on here. You've got JSquash building this symbol file, referring to the reserved list, reserving to what you want to ignore, and you know what should ultimately happen is you got this symbol file, which is all the symbols that need to be replaced. Okay, so which is this. Okay, now so you've seen what happens if you don't have any options. It does that. Okay. Now I've also got a verify option, and what this does is it does a sort of a dummy substitution. It doesn't replace it with these short symbol names. It just sticks an A and a dollar before the symbol that it was going to change. And the reason for this is it just allows you to see easily what is going to be substituted. And you know, if you find you've gone for the whole minify, the whole compact and obfuscation, and you find there's a bug in there, you can come back to this stage and you can sort of see what's going on a bit better. Okay. Oh, why do I keep doing that? Right. So you can also, for instance, just remove comments. Right. So you know, I've done that as a separate thing. I mean, that gets rid of some code, that gets rid of some space. 21% smaller just by getting rid of the comments. You can also remove the white space. Now what it's done is that has reduced it by 37%, but it hasn't substituted any of the symbols. So that's more likely to work because it's not substituted any symbols. Okay. And the good thing about checking this in Visual Studio Code is if you do have an error, it highlights it down the side. So for instance, if I was to I don't know, will it? Yeah, see, look, it's view problems. Yeah, so you've got this little red, you get little red dots down here. Let's see, look. Should have put a little squiggle somewhere. I'm expecting to see a little squiggle, but it hasn't. I can't see it. Can't see it. But anyway, down here, it's telling you what's wrong. See, so if I was to put that, fix that again. Right, the errors have gone. So Visual Studio Code is quite good for that. And of course, one of the common problems with JavaScript is missing out your semicolons. It has no problem running the code with semicolons missing if you just have it in the standard format, but as soon as you minimize it and you get rid of all your white space, it doesn't like it. Now, I am not a leading expert on JavaScript. You know, I get by, like all my coding, I just get by. So anyway, I've established that much. So what else is there? Ultimately you want to do a full compact, right? So you combine the substitute with the remove comments and white space. So this is the biggest stage, right? So that's half the size. And I don't claim that this is as optimal as any other minifier. I have no idea, right? But that's good enough for me. I'm less concerned about the size of the file as I am with people being able to just nick your code and see what's going on. I'm not a security freak, but there's no point in giving your code away. Right, so I'm not sure this would run. This is just to demonstrate the functionality and what goes on here. But I mean, again, if you just have the substitute function and you've got everything else the same, you know, you can do a side-by-side comparison with the original file and the changed file, and you can just see what's going on. So this initialize function, as I say here, it's changing initialize to AT. So you've got initialize here, and it's changing everywhere it finds initialize, it changes it to AT. Okay, so I don't know how many times it's done that. Match case. Oh, there you go. Right, so line 211. There you go. That's where initialize is called, and it just calls AT here, right? I think that's not bad actually. Anyway, I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else to say. Yeah, so you can download this from GitHub. Here. And, you know, feel free to mess about with it. Cheers then.